Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. While of course there are outliers, a trend that you'll find on the internet is that if you tend to love one game, you also tend to dislike the other. This is largely due to small and big changes between these two games that can drastically change how players feel about them. For me personally, if I was to fall into one of these two camps, I would fall into the camp that likes Dark Souls 2 and kinda dislikes Dark Souls 3. I believe that that's a relatively small crowd of people and that the opposite of that is much larger, so in this video I'm going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of both Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3, and why I believe that people tend to fall into one camp or the other. As a Dark Souls 2 fan myself, it still really isn't very hard to see some of the game's major faults. I played every Souls game on release starting with Demon Souls, and Dark Souls 2 visually looks worse than what I remember Demon Souls looking like when it came out on the PS3. These visuals are only made worse when they had pre-release footage that looked way better than the final product we received. The world design that we got in Dark Souls 2 was a major step down compared to what we had in Dark Souls 1. Even if you just choose to go down one of the paths you're given, it doesn't really connect to any of the other paths, and it doesn't really connect to the path it's supposed to, as the geometry makes no sense. Also, there are quite a few, well, it's a video game, so you have to accept it moments in the level design. And this is probably the biggest problem, is that the game itself feels kinda clunky. Even just doing the simple task of trying to move around in a circle, it feels like you're locked in 8 directions. And then even after all the patches, there are still some enemy attacks that make you question, how did I get hit? Outside of some of the DLC bosses and a very few amount of the bosses in the regular game, the majority of them don't offer that much of a challenge and aren't as much fun to play against as what you find in the rest of the Dark Souls series. It really does feel like the devs just threw in every single idea that they could think up, no matter how fun or polished those ideas ended up being in the final product. And on the other hand, these negatives that Dark Souls 2 has are largely the opposite of what it is you'll find in Dark Souls 3. While Dark Souls 3 doesn't look perfect everywhere, overall it does look pretty good for the majority of the game. And Dark Souls 3 also sped up the combat when compared to previous Souls games. Attacks and rolls eat up far less stamina, enemies are far more aggressive, and as a result, the boss fights tend to be far more flashy and can really test the reflexes for the player. Overall, the world design also looks far better than what it is that we had in Dark Souls 2. Also, Dark Souls 3 introduced a really cool system with its weapon arts, ideally making it where MP is useful for every single type of character, and along with that, giving you the ability to allot Estus to either increase your maximum HP or increase your maximum MP. But as I mentioned in the start of this video, I'd fall into the camp that tends to like Dark Souls 2 far more than I like Dark Souls 3. I just ended talking about how cool the new weapon art system was in Dark Souls 3, but while a lot of them can look really cool, a lot of them are also so bad that you would never use them in a tactical way. And this carries over to the spells that you're able to use throughout this game, or the miracles. Like, the one that I'm showing you now is at in-game DLC, where all of the enemies are expected for you to have maxed out weapons. And the damage it does is insulting, and this really isn't the only time that this game does stuff like this to you. This is a cool sword that you can pick up in the endgame DLC, but it's worse than any other weapon that you could have in your inventory, even when you're spec'd to use it. These are not weapons that you get in the beginning of the game. These are weapons that are got at the very end of the game and are still worse than the standard longsword you can start the game with. Every Dark Souls game has weapons that are stronger than other weapons, but Dark Souls 3 specifically feels like the game is only balanced around one style of play. It's not just that the damage got nerfed in Dark Souls 3 when it comes to magic or distance attacks, it's also that the enemies are so aggressive that they can immediately move into your position that any advantage that you would have had from attacking from range is gone for the majority of the encounters that you'll face here. You factor all this in the fact that they made shields much worse overall, and the game just turns into a roll fest with quick weapons. And sadly, this issue with improperly balancing the weapons and the spells that you're able to find throughout Dark Souls 3 makes other aspects of the game worse. Like, exploring doesn't feel nearly as great if you're getting weapons and spells that are worse than the stuff you started the game with. And the world design that was bad in Dark Souls 2 is even worse in Dark Souls 3, with the game being very linear, again making the stuff that you can get, like if you want to get a rare sword early on in the game, you don't have that option without playing through 90% of the experience, at which point, what's the fun of having that rare weapon? At least in Dark Souls 1, Demon Souls, and Dark Souls 2, it's open enough where there's a lot of things that you can get early depending on which path you choose to take as you play through the game. That's not there in Dark Souls 3. And finally, I get to discuss why I like Dark Souls 2. And to help with that, it's helpful to know how long I've been playing these From Software games. I've been playing From Software's RPGs since the first one that they released in the West. No, not that one. Kingsfield.
Legends say, never approach the island, for a sleeping beast in the darkness waits for a great awakening.
Kingsfield 1, at least in the US, isn't really great because of its combat, because its combat's kinda... But it is great because of the exploration. Being able to explore an open map filled with secrets where you can find rare weapons everywhere you go, and being able to build up your character in this way with new spells and new traps and everything that goes along with that is a fun experience for at least some people. Dark Souls 2 still carries that fun level of exploring around the map that I had while playing Kingsfield as a kid. It's much more of an RPG as a result of the bad combat and things that I've mentioned beforehand, but overall, it's still just fun to build your character, and it still has some improvements over even Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls on how it is you can build your character. Dual wielding actually works, and it's really fun to use with the power stancing mode that they enabled. You can shoot magic with your binoculars so you can aim it and even get headshots to knock enemies down. All of these things can make it where building these different characters is still fun, and being able to do that in the open space that Dark Souls 2 provides in a world that allows you to go to a lot of different places early on creates what is still a really fun experience. At the end of the day, which Souls game you end up liking more, to me, seems to depend on why is it that you enjoy these games to begin with. If you like creating a variety of different characters with at least somewhat fun combat and being able to do that in an open area where you're able to grab stuff in almost any order and you're rewarded for exploring, I think Dark Souls 2 is still the better product. But if you primarily care for facing bosses and having your reflexes tested, I think Dark Souls 3 is far more polished when it comes to creating well-designed combat experiences. At the end of the day, to me, it just seems like From Software created kind of two different gameplay experiences within the same framework. Hopefully, Elden Ring is so good that we don't have to talk about these games in the future anyways. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.